The Zarlum Chronicles, Episode 1, Part 4. The next morning, all Amoura could see was a bright orange light bleeding through her eyelids, indicating to her it was morning and the sun was out. She slowly opened her eyes a fraction of an amount too tired to open them fully. Amoura slowly sat up, feeling a little pain in her lower back from the uncomfortable mattress. Amoura stretched her arms out, yawning, shaking her head. She pushed her messy, tangled hair out her eyes, which got all curly in her sleep no matter what she did to it. She got that from her mum. Annoyingly enough, they had exactly the same hair, which presented the exact same morning problems. She looked out the window, seeing the sun beaming down on the planet, awakening the life within, or what was left of it. Amoura smiled at the sun. Because it was winter, they rarely ever saw the sun, and she had missed it. Amoura rolled off her bed and went to a mirror, brushing her hair straight again. She then shook Raven awake, who opened her brown eyes, smiling.
"Have not you ever heard of a lay-in?" Amoura frowned.
Did you have a stroke in the middle of that sentence? That's not how English works, my friend. You must be exhausted.
Raven stretched her arms slowly, saying, "Well, you can eat a giant bag of shut the fuck up." Amoura laughed.
Are you going to say that every morning?
"Correct. That's how I start my morning."
They got dressed and went down the ladder, seeing Magpie still staring forward. Amoura clicked her fingers in front of her eyes a few times, which made her blink back to normal.
"What? Oh, hello."
Yeah, hello. Thanks for waking us up, Magpie.
"Well, the thing about that is, you never told me how or when."
You offered.
Magpie nodded. I know. "Were you playing music yesterday?" Amoura nodded.
Yeah. And you know why?
"Yeah, Estella's stupid CD player. You can't miss it, she took it everywhere with her. She really loved that bloody thing. Does it even still work?" Amoura nodded.
Yeah, still works. Which is pretty shocking considering it is genuinely about 60 or 70 years old.
Magpie nodded. "Well, I'm thousands of years old, and I still work." Amoura smiled.
Yeah, if the English dictionary changed the entire definition of the word work to asshole, then maybe.
"Oi! You're not too old for a clump round the ear."
Amoura sat down, saying,
Now, today we will begin preparations for the trip and go to dereham. Raven, how much fuel is in the car?
Raven shrugged.
"Haven't got a clue."
Could you go check for me while I make breakfast?
Sure, I can do that. Amoura went over to the radio area, turning off the heat and turning on the electric. She struck a match on the fireplace, lighting it for warmth. They didn't like to put the heat on in the day because they didn't use it very much and it was very difficult to get some more. Raven got herself ready to go and check the car for how much fuel was in it so they could make sure they could go to dereham. Meanwhile, with Amoura. She opened a cupboard, pulling out a frying pan, as Raven came in, jangling her keys as she walked. Amoura placed the pan on the grill.
Raven, how do you like your eggs?
Raven looked over.
"Chicken."
Amoura and Magpie both looked at her. Magpie shook her head.
"I'm surrounded by morons. Actual morons. She means, how do you want it cooked?"
Raven smiled.
"Oh, right, yeah. Fried, please."
Amoura shook her head, trying not to laugh.
How many do you want?
"How many do we have?"
17?
"Then I'll have 2, please, as it'll be a big day."
Amoura nodded.
All right, I'll just be having 1. I won't bother asking you, Magpie.
Magpie nodded, looking at her black and white fingernails.
"Uh-huh. How many times do I have to tell you I don't eat?"
No more, I get it now.
She went to the drawers, opening one and removing 3 eggs. She placed 2 of them in a bowl, then cracked one of them on the rim of the pan, splitting it apart with her fingers. She did the same to the other 2, hearing the hiss of the fire and bubbling of the eggs, which was a sound she loved. Amoura grabbed a lid, waiting. She waited for a few minutes, then turned to Magpie.
Could you get me a glass of water?
She looked up. Why?
I am going to cook these eggs. Properly. With water? Yeah, with water. You heard me correctly the first time. Just do it.
Magpie looked a little confused. However, grabbed a glass filling it with water, then handed it to Amoura, who poured the water around the eggs, making them bubble. She grabbed the lid, placing it on top.
Right now, we wait for the steam to cook the eggs until the yolks become cloudy.
How are these eggs going to be?
Fucking amazing! It's my late mother's recipe.
Yeah, I figured that. She always was a bit odd. Putting water around eggs isn't much of a recipe, is it?
Hey, that's my mother you're talking about there.
Magpie nodded.
I'm aware.
Raven from the corner said,
Best eggs ever, huh? Well, I'll be the judge of that one, mate.
I'm sure you will.
When the eggs were done, Amoura removed the lid, seeing the massive cloud of steam shoot up. She lifted the pan to Raven, who was smiling sitting down after just checking the car. They would discuss it when their breakfast was done. Raven smiled at the eggs.
So these will be the best eggs in the world.
Yep, and that's even before the fall.
She served them up with the toast Magpie had been making in the corner. Raven sniffed.
I must admit, they smell good. They smell fantastic, actually.
She picked up her knife and fork, clinking them together. She cut a piece of egg and put it into her mouth, chewing it. With her heightened sense of taste, she was able to tell the slightest difference in taste. She rolled it around her mouth, then swallowed it, raising her eyebrows a little.
That's... bloody hell. That's actually pretty good.
Amoura nodded.
I told you.
How have you only just told me this now?
Amoura ate some of her egg, saying,
Because my brain is constantly getting stronger. Soon, I'll be at 100%, which gives a lot of abilities. One of which is extreme memory. Every day that passes, I seem to remember more and more. No one should be able to remember.
How far back can you remember?
It comes in waves.
Raven frowned, taking another bite.
What do you mean?
Well, it's like waves of memories of my whole life, going from now to when I was born, then back again. I think soon I'll remember every moment of every second of my life.
Magpie sniggered.
Oh yeah. Why don't you just hand that power to me?
I can't, and you know it.
I know.
Amoura then thought of something.
Magpie, do you mind if I ask you something?
Go on then.
Amoura showed Magpie the picture of her family.
When was this taken? It looks like a party.
Magpie took the photo, looking shocked, genuinely smiling.
Holy shit. Whoa. God, this felt like a while ago. Where did you get this?
Delilah gave it to me. My other mother.
Magpie smiled.
Well, they had a, prosthetic body part business. You know, giving out metal arms, legs, stuff like that. They had so much money and technology. They wanted to save the world in more ways than just being superheroes. This photo was taken on the opening to that business, their first site. They had a get-together, you know, investors and shit. It was a good time. Estella got drunk.
Amoura giggled.
Of course she did.
Raven took a peek at the photo. Is that your family? Amoura took the photo back, then handed it to Raven so she could look at it. Raven smiled as Amoura nodded.
Yeah, that's my family. I'll admit, they're a funny-looking bunch.
Raven nodded. I kinda like that about them. Holy shit. You genuinely look just like Oswin. But taller. Magpie smiled.
Yeah, it would be hard not to be taller. We used to laugh at how short Oswin was. Good times.
When they were done eating, Raven and Amoura immediately put their dishes in the sink. They got their winter clothes, while Magpie stood waiting for them. She couldn't be bothered to get into winter clothes. It wasn't like she was going to freeze. Amoura grabbed her satchels, not putting them on yet. She went outside as Raven asked a question she had been wondering for a while.
Magpie, do you ever get scared that one day you will die? And actually die? Like one day you might get shot and not get up. I gave up on that hope a very long time ago. Really? That's a hope? Yeah. If I suddenly get shot and die, it will be a relief, believe me. I'm sorry.
Magpie looked away from her, no longer wanting to look at Raven. She really hated questions about her immortality. She had to live with it and didn't want to live with it constantly thinking about it. Raven then asked,
What about your hair?
Magpie frowned. My hair? What about it?
Like, if you cut your hair when you die, will it regenerate?
Magpie nodded.
Yep. What about fingernails?
Yep, even my suit. If I take it off and die, no matter where it is in the world, it'll shoot to me and get back on me. That's not bad, though. It's a nice suit.
Meanwhile, outside, Amoura went over to the blue tarp which normally went over the truck. However, it had been removed by Raven. Despite the tarp, the car was still covered in a small layer of snow. But Amoura had a solution. She placed her bags in the back seats as Magpie came out and climbed in the back, closing the door and loading her gun just in case. Amoura got in the front seat, allowing the car to roar into life, which shook the car violently. She reversed and lined the car up, so it was facing the gate, ready for it to be open. Amoura got out, going to the house. She opened the door, seeing Raven.
Could you open the gate, Raven?
She heard Raven from behind the car saying she would do it, then close it. Amoura went into the house, applying an idea that she had a while ago, and was surprised no one had thought of before. She grabbed a leaf blower and started blowing all the snow off the car easily. Raven smiled at her idea.
Wow, that is actually a good idea. Amoura put the leaf blower back inside, saying,
Yes, I am aware of this fact. All my ideas are good ideas.
She got in the car, closing the door as the gate slowly opened. Amoura slowly drove through the gates. As she drove, she messed with some dials, turning on the heat. She heard Handel's voice from the dash say,
I have been connected. Amoura nodded.
Good job, Handles. We're probably going to need you today.
No probably about it.
replied Handel's, and Amoura could tell even without seeing her hologram face, she was rolling her eyes. Raven closed the gates, locking them with black metal chains, and got in the car. They both removed their hats and goggles. Raven put her hands to the heat, rubbing her hands together, then locked the doors because it made her feel just a little safer. Amoura started driving fast towards the city because there were no speed limits because of the fact there were no more police to enforce them, and no one cared in the slightest. There was no one else left to care, and they weren't going to crash into any other cars. It was incredibly rare to see cars. In fact, Amoura had never actually seen another car on the road driving before. Amoura only had a car because she found it in the underground, so it was unaffected by the rest of the world. Every other car was either destroyed or just couldn't be used. Amoura, like usual, was lucky when she found it. Raven opened the glove box, grabbing a handgun. She checked the ammo and ejected the empty mag case, replacing it with another, then cocked it. She also grabbed 2 extra ammo mags, putting them into her pockets.
You never know what's going to go down in the city. Amoura nodded.
Exactly. It's for the best. Better to be over-prepared than under-prepared. But try not to use it. The sound might cause worse things to turn up.
Raven nodded.
I know the rule. Is that why Magpie has bought her sword?
Magpie spoke up from the back seats.
It saved a lot of people, many times. I wouldn't go anywhere without it. I'd have to be a moron not to bring it.
They felt the car jump upwards a little. Raven looked in the side mirror. You hit a tree branch! Amoura nodded, trying not to smile.
Yep, it's fine. I wouldn't worry about it.
The fact you never had a driving test is genuinely terrifying,
said Raven, holding onto the seat like her hand was stuck.
Well, neither have you.
I'm not the one driving the damn car, shrieked Raven. They felt a bump again.
Did you hit something again?
Amoura shook her head, looking around.
Nah, I don't do that.
Tell that to the tree branch. Please keep your eyes on the road. God damn it.
Amoura put her hand on Raven's hand.
Calm down. We're fine. Just stop worrying. What could possibly go wrong? I know exactly what I'm doing.
Don't even make me go through the list of the 187 things that can go wrong with you driving.
Like what?
Like that tree!
Amoura suddenly avoided it.
And there we are. I avoided it, and everything is fine again.
We could have hit it!
Little too late for could'ves, Raven. Try and think positive.
I'm positive you're going to get us killed.
Magpie rolled her eyes, looking out the window.
Would you two shut up? You sound like a married couple.
Raven and Amoura looked away from each other, going slightly red. They eventually arrived outside the city. Amoura could see out the window the tall buildings completely devoid of life and sound. She would never get over how weird dereham felt. It was like going to a forest after a fire. It just felt wrong. However, getting into the city wasn't easy because they had to go across the only bridge. People liked to wait and kill people who tried to enter or leave the city, which even Amoura had to admit wasn't a horrible survival strategy. Ambush the people leaving the city with the supplies so you never have to enter it. Not a totally stupid idea, but it made survival more difficult. Amoura looked down the bridge, not seeing anyone. However, that was the idea. She saw many destroyed cars being covered in vines, and that was the problem. There was plenty of places for people to hide. Magpie grabbed her gun, pointing it out the window, just in case.
No point in looking for them. They hide behind things like those cars.
Raven nodded, going slightly pale. She too held up her gun, pointing it upwards with both hands prepared. Amoura began driving slowly, constantly, listening and looking out for people who stayed on the bridge to kill people and take their stuff. As she drove extremely tense, they started driving over a lot of bumps and lumps in the road, hearing crushing and snapping sounds, which made the car horribly jumpy. Amoura looked a little confused, looking around for an explanation.
What's going on?
Raven looked out the steamed window.
Maybe we somehow drove off the road somehow.
Amoura shook her head.
No, we're on the road. We've stayed straight the entire time. And if we were off the road, we'd be in the ocean. It's just a bridge.
Magpie then revealed the truth. We're on the road. And we're driving, going over bodies, covering the street.
Amoura shook her head in disgust.
It's really disturbing that they weren't there last week.
I know.
Finally, they got off the bridge and onto the island of dereham. They began driving through the city. It was horribly eerie driving through a city hearing not a single sound. It just didn't feel right to them. They stopped at a truck site looking out for people, and people there were. They drove into an alleyway, turning the engine of the car off and leaning down as they heard a slow scraping sound, getting louder and louder. After a few minutes, they saw a huge man slowly limping past, dragging a large battle axe behind him. He didn't seem to notice the car, or just didn't care. They could have killed him, but it would be a waste of a bullet. They sat in the car waiting for a few minutes. When the scraping sound finally faded away and silence returned, they got out the car, scanning the area for anyone else. They went to the back of the car. Amoura grabbed her satchels, putting them on, and then grabbed her bow.
All right, I'm going to get some supplies. Magpie, could you guard the car?
Magpie nodded, sitting against the back of the Jeep.
Sure.
Amoura turned to Raven.
Raven, in the back are petrol cans. Could you take them and fill them up? We'll meet back here in an hour.
Raven nodded.
All right. Be careful.
And you.
Magpie opened the car door.
You two keep your ears low and your asses lower. This isn't a place you can mess up. If you see anyone, Don't wait until they see you. Don't attempt peace. Just shoot them.
Magpie climbed into the car. As Amoura and Raven hugged each other, then split up, running down opposite ends of the alleyway, running into the empty and dead city, while Magpie sat in the car because she wasn't going to give up the car unless it literally exploded with her inside. Raven was keeping herself low. She was constantly looking around. She saw a petrol station and began making her way towards it, hearing rocks falling around her, holding 2 petrol cans. She got to the petrol station and started looking through the tanks to see if they had any petrol left, and one did. Raven started filling the petrol cans she had, constantly looking around her, surprised no one was around her. It seemed like the perfect place to ambush someone. It was out in the open, areas of attack all around her that made her feel uneasy. When the petrol cans were finally completely full to the brim, she retrieved the petrol cans and started heading back to the truck. When she arrived, she filled the truck with half a can, then placed the other can in the back of the truck. Raven grabbed the other, taking it back to the petrol station. She started filling it when she heard movement behind her. She spun around, pointing her gun around her. Raven then saw 6 people leak from around the buildings like horrible snakes. They were all walking on all 4s. They were making animal-like snarling noises and drawling like they had rabies. Raven raised her gun.
Listen, I know there is still some of your old self inside you. If you listen to this now, then you will turn around and leave. I swear I will let you leave.
One of them jumped at her, making her jump back, falling over when she hit the ground. Her gun backfired. The bullet hit the petrol hose, spitting petrol everywhere, like a knife hitting a vein. She sprang up, grabbing the can of petrol, and started running as quickly as she could. She turned, seeing the people trying to follow. They could go terrifyingly quick on 4 legs, much faster than Raven. Magpie came running out the alley, drawn to the gunshots. She sighed.
Oh, for God's sake. Why do I leave you kids unsupervised?
She raised her gun, shooting the petrol spilling from the hose, causing it to light on fire. The flames shot up the petrol pipe, hitting into the pump, making the entire petrol station explode in a large black and orange mushroom cloud of horror, blasting the people back, killing a few. The ones who didn't die immediately ran to a nearby building. Magpie ran to Raven, helping her up.
Yeah, remember when I said no peace, no talking to them? Thank God you took my advice.
Raven looked at Magpie, then at the enormous ball of flame.
You idiot!
Magpie frowned.
What's the problem?
You blew up a fucking petrol station. Don't you think that was a little loud, you twat? You're the one who's always worried about survival. Now what? They looked around. Then Magpie said,
Well, things are attracted to gunshots. That indicates survivors. Explosions don't. We'll be fine, but keep an eye on things.
They went back to the truck and sat waiting for Amoura to come back. Raven shook her head.
I can't believe you saw me in trouble and thought, oh yes, an explosion will really help her out. Like Jesus, Magpie.
Magpie rolled her eyes.
Oh yes, because you were handling it so well by yourself. As a matter of fact, I was.
Magpie shook her head.
Were you though? 6 versus 1? What could go wrong?
Meanwhile, across the city, Amoura smashed through a window, hearing the shards of glass fall to the ground. She hoisted herself up through the window, trying to be quiet, but the glass didn't make it easy. As she climbed through, she made sure she didn't cut herself and tried not to step directly on the glass. When she got in the building, she began looking around, listening in case someone was inside. However, she didn't hear anything. She began walking around the house, hearing the creaking floorboards under her heavy boots. Amoura began opening cupboards, grabbing cans of food like beans, hot dogs, and fruit things that would last for a very long time. She also grabbed that stuff because it could be cooked. However, it didn't have to be, so if they couldn't, for whatever reason, make a fire, they had that option. She then opened the fridge immediately, seeing that it was a bad idea because she was instantly hit by the horrific smell of 30-year-old milk and cheese all covered in maggots and flies everywhere. So that was no good for her. Amoura grabbed her nose, trying to protect it from the smell she couldn't even describe as she kicked the fridge door shut. She ran over to the sink, vomiting down the small drain, shaking from the reaction. She wiped her lips and took a swig from her metal canteen of water, coughing from the vomit. She felt a strange shiver go up her body. However, felt fine and thought she could continue to look around the supplies. She should have realized that opening a fridge wasn't a good idea, 30 years after an outbreak. She looked around the house. She began thinking of the many memories associated with this random house. The dinner table still had plates, knives, and forks caked with dust. She also noticed the candle heads with the smallest amount of wax. The once large, tall candles had been burned down to nothing. She used to hear stories when the outbreak started of people putting candles towards the safe areas. Maybe that candle was one of them. She started looking around for more supplies like weapons and tools they could use. She was very happy when she found a first aid kit, because that would be very helpful. As she was looking around, she saw a line of dust fall down next to her, then heard a loud creak above her, causing more dust to fall. Her body immediately tensed. It could just be some animal, or it could be a person, and if it was a person, they definitely knew she was there. She started doing calculations in her head. If it was an animal, it would have had to have been a big one to move the dust and creak the floor. It was definitely a person, and they were right above her. She cocked her gun, however she decided she didn't want to fight anyone that day, and strangely assumed that the person wouldn't want to fight her. She'd been in the house for almost 15 minutes, and they hadn't attacked her, so she decided to show that same level of what she hoped was respect. So she went back to the window, stepping out onto the dumpster she had climbed onto the hoist herself onto the window. When she got in the alley, she heard something that made her spine tingle, the sound of someone knocking. She slowly turned, looking up at the window above the one she broke through, seeing an old, insane-looking man slowly waving at her, a large grin plastered on his face, strangely twitching and shaking, almost like he was trying to suppress a laugh. His eyes wide and bloodshot, he used his other hand to open the window, and she could hear him singing a freakishly high-pitched voice.
Before he could finish, Amoura shook her head.
Fuck that!
She turned, leaving. She heard the man say in the same high-pitched, sing-song voice,
Don't run away. We want to play.
She ran away. However, her problems got a lot worse for her. She decided to go to a different part of the city. She checked a few more houses, getting as many supplies as possible. She might have been greedy, but she sort of had to be. A few minutes later, Amoura walked through a back door of a building. She always found it more easy to enter through the back of a building than the front. If she walked through the street, it would be too dangerous. She would basically be walking along with a sign on her head saying, "Come on, shoot me," which would be pretty stupid. So she entered and exited through the back of the buildings, climbing over fences. When she entered the house, she listened for a little bit, but didn't hear any sounds of life. She entered and noticed an enormous hole in the ceiling. However, it wasn't a strange thing. She was just lucky it was a house still standing. She started emptying shelves when she suddenly froze. She could hear a strange sound she had never heard before. It sounded like a strange crackling or clicking sound coming from directly above her. Amoura slowly turned, seeing the stairs were covered in scratches, enormous scratches, and she would prefer she not meet whatever caused them. Amoura slowly backed towards the door. She could hear the clicking moving terrifyingly fast above her. However, she kept her composure, trying not to panic. Then she heard the most terrifying sound. Her foot hit a creaky floorboard. The moment the creak echoed through the air, the clicking sound immediately stopped. Amoura held on to the hope that maybe, just maybe, the creature had gone away. But since when was life ever that easy? The horrifying-looking creature came shooting through the hole in the ceiling, clanging to the ground unnervingly fast on 4 legs, moving its head around fast. It looked like an alien. Its teeth were massive. Its skin was gray with little bumps running across it. It seemed to be creating the crackling sounds, getting louder and quieter with the movement of its head. The creature seemed to never be able to stop moving back and forth, like it was constantly energized. Amoura noticed its massive arms with claws that could go through her stomach and go out through her back with an inch to spare. Its arms and legs forced the creature to hold itself low, with its elbows and knees up like a spider. From what Amoura could see, it seemed to be blind. Amoura had never seen one of the creatures before, so didn't know what to do. However, she knew that the creature couldn't see things that weren't moving, so she immediately stopped moving a muscle. However, it wasn't going to work because it could hear her heartbeat. It slowly came over to her, not sure what she was, a little confused. It hadn't ever met someone who wasn't afraid of it and wanted to learn why. Amoura, meanwhile, was thinking hard of how to kill the creature, or at least get out of it alive. There simply had to be a way. Or she hoped there was a way. She then had an idea. She slowly removed her wristwatch, holding it out to the side. The creature looked down at it, hearing the ticking. It began to move its head over the ticking, getting lower and lower. Amoura began to move her arm, watching the creature look at the watch with confusion and a little fear. Amoura stretched her arm out more and more, moving it down, watching the creature follow. Amoura was trying to move it to the perfect spot. Suddenly, with no warning, used her knife to stab it through its large gray forehead, where the eyes should have been. The creature made an angry squeal like a pig as it moved around in pain, eventually falling down so hard it shot up a cloud of dust. Amoura slowly approached the creature, seeing how horrible it looked. She paused for a moment, considering looking through the house for supplies, but decided it would be better if she left, because there could be a lot more of them around. And from what she'd heard, they were incredibly adaptable. That wouldn't work twice. Amoura had essentially given the Red River virus that created that thing a software update. She still felt bad, though. That thing was once a person, and now it's dead. Amoura left, going back to the car. They started putting the stuff in the back of the car. As they did, Amoura said,
I saw one of the creatures.
The others looked surprised. Really? Asked Magpie, looking shocked. And you survived?
Yeah, I just stayed still and killed it.
Wow, that is impressive. I saw one of the creatures kill an entire village full of people, including the children. It wasn't good to see.
Amoura nodded.
I bet it didn't. I felt bad killing it. That was once a person. And I killed him.
Magpie shook her head.
No, the virus killed them. Long ago.
They got back in the car and started driving as Raven said, At least we got some supplies. However, we blew up a petrol station. Amoura looked at her.
You did what? How did you manage that?
Raven frowned. Don't look at me, look at the supervisor over there. Magpie rolled her eyes as Amoura turned to her.
Okay, how did you manage that?
Well, it sort of just went bang and then went up in flames.
Amoura shook her head.
Never a normal day.
Raven smiled. No, never. Normal days don't exist around here. But horribly, that's normal. Amoura, where are we going?
She had noticed they were not driving in the direction to the bridge.
Before we go on this trip, I want to show you something.
Show me what? Amoura paused.
Well, it represents the future I couldn't ever have had.
Raven frowned. How come?
You'll see. My mother's used to live in this huge house. They had a lot of fun, and it was where I was meant to grow up, if time had been kinder.
Magpie looked out the window as they turned into the posh part of the city.
Oh, I know where we're going.
I just want to see it one more time.
Magpie nodded.
I'm not objecting. I want to see it as well. I only saw it a few times, but it was cool.
After a few minutes, they arrived at the end of the rich neighborhood. Raven looked around. Your parents were rich? Amoura nodded.
Yeah, with the help of their job. But they never liked to think of themselves as rich. They actually hated it.
Raven looked at the houses.
What was your parents' jobs? I don't think you ever told me. You've told me they were heroes, but what does that mean?
Amoura paused, then sighed.
Yeah, I don't really tell people. It's hard to talk about it. But have you ever heard of night spider and blackbird?
Raven looked amazed.
No way. They supplied the technology to Night Spider and Blackbird?
Amoura frowned, then laughed.
No, they didn't give them the technology. They were Night Spider and Blackbird.
Raven looked amazed.
Seriously? The world's greatest heroes?
Amoura nodded.
The very same.
Raven exhaled from shock.
Jesus. It all makes sense with, Estella. So, Night Spider and Blackbird were Oswin and Delilah Mabry?
Yep.
Magpie looked confused.
Amoura, you realize their wealth didn't come from being Night Spider and Blackbird, right? They were wealthy before that.
Amoura frowned, looking into the back where Magpie was sitting.
Really? How did they get their wealth?
Well, Oswin worked at UNIT and got a lot of money. Then they eventually started a company together. Them being Night Spider and Blackbird had nothing to do with it. In fact, they actually spent so much money doing it. But it was for the good, for the city. They saved not just the city, but the world, time and time again, and never made a single credit.
She chuckled a little.
They just called it something of a hobby.
Amoura looked shocked.
Jesus, I didn't know that!
Raven looked out the window.
I wish I would have known them properly.
Properly?
Asked Amoura, looking confused.
I met them twice as a baby. The first time, they saved my life as a child. I was the last redhead, and people wanted to turn me into a weapon. The second time, they were getting a team together to take down those people.
Amoura turned down a street, asking,
Who were those people?
I don't even know. They also saved my mothers twice. They really changed the world.
Magpie went very quiet, knowing exactly who those people were, but didn't want to talk about it. Amoura nodded.
Yeah, but sadly it wasn't enough for the planet.
Now I think about it, we have a lot in common. We both have mothers, one of which identifies as a woman.
Amoura smiled.
True.
They arrived at the house numbered 127. The outside of the house was massive, with 2 sets of black iron gates with an O and a D which had been bashed open. The entire house was surrounded by tall white walls, which curved up into the gates. They drove in, seeing the stone paths in a semicircle leading up to the house, the stones of which were scattered everywhere. Inside the semicircle used to be lovely green cut grass and a statue fountain of the house owners. Now the grass was overgrown, and the statue had been destroyed, leaving just the broken rubble behind. On the other side of the semicircle was just grass. The house was massive. 5 steps lead up to the main double doors under an overhang held up by 2 large pillars either side of the doorway, one with a carved D and the other with a carved O. In front of the house were a bunch of pretty flower beds, which had overgrown, however, it didn't actually look too bad. Either side of the huge white house were black fences going all the way around their massive garden, made up of a huge field and trees. The people who used to live there fenced off the forest they owned, keeping just the field. The forest was on top of a rocky mountain, and even a river that led down to a pond, used by them to just hang out. Raven looked around, fascinated by the house.
They lived pretty good lives. They got out the car, and Amoura nodded.
Yeah, they really love this place. It obviously doesn't look how it did in those days. It still has their spirit.
Magpie nodded.
You couldn't purge the memory of those two, even if you burned the entire building down. Although that didn't stop the crazy people trying when the fall happened.
Amoura frowned.
They tried to burn this place down? Really? It doesn't look damaged at all.
Magpie smiled.
Oswin, being the scientist she was, had contingencies. Why do you think the structure is still standing all these years later?
They went to the right side fence of the house, opening one of the gates going into the field, stepping over knee-high grass to get to the back of the field. Raven looked around.
Careful, grass snakes could be hiding.
Amoura nodded.
That's true, but they're hardly the most dangerous thing right now.
They looked around the house, seeing it covered in cracks and vines. A lot of the windows were broken, and large holes covered the house.
It would have looked beautiful in the old days. Sadly, time takes away everything.
Magpie nodded.
Yeah, time does that.
Behind the house was a large patio area. It had gray tiles on the ground. In the center was a large pool. It used to be full of clean, clear water. However, now it was full of leaves and deep green water covered in tree sap. The water was so green the bottom of the pool couldn't be seen. At the very back of the field was a sitting area with benches and a nice smokeless barbecue table that would even keep your feet warm. Magpie smiled at the sight of it, thinking about how Delilah would never shut up about the fact it kept your feet warm. The sitting area was surrounded by redwood trees, which had been put in by the owners. Across the field was an assortment of gardening equipment, scattered everywhere like a hurricane had swept through. However, it was hard to see all the equipment because the grass had become so horribly overgrown. In front of the house was a large deck, which used to lead into the house, however. A large hot tub covered the back doors. Amoura looked around. Her voice sounded sad and a little shaky.
This house used to be beautiful, and now some asshole has taken that away!
Raven nodded, picking up one of the footballs on the ground.
Yeah, I can tell. This place would have been beautiful before the outbreak. Whoever lived here clearly had good taste. Your parents clearly had very good taste.
Amoura nodded, looking around.
They could have lived a long life together, but they didn't.
Are you okay, Amoura? Asked Raven, going over to her. She nodded.
Yeah, I'm fine. But if I could have just one wish, it would be for Karn to still be alive.
Why?
So, I could kill her myself.
Raven nodded. Well, she's dead, and the dead are dealing with her now. Amoura shook her head.
But the living were not done with her yet.
Amoura walked a little further into the field.
If my parents' plan had worked, I would have been playing in this field and having fun with them.
They noticed in the corner was a fenced-off area for the owner's pets. Raven went over to it. She ran her finger along the large hole, clearly made by something with sharp claws. Most likely wolves or something a lot bigger.
They had a dog?
Amoura joined her, nodding.
Yeah, they did. She was called Matilda, and she was a beautiful black and brown German shepherd. They don't actually know what happened to her. She disappeared when the outbreak broke out. They came home and she was gone. They did try to find her, but the streets were closing. She is definitely dead now, but they never found her. It must have been heartbreaking. I don't know why, but I can imagine her running around, just having fun.
Raven smiled.
Yeah, running around, having fun in the field.
It would have been great to meet her.
Of course. I bet she had a great life playing around in the fields, having fun. But I can never see it.
Raven went over to another pet area. It was like the other pet area, however, it seemed to be for something much bigger than a dog.
Did they have another pet? Another dog?
Amoura stepped in, seeing the skeleton of the large animal on the ground. She fell to her knees, looking sad.
No, this wasn't a dog. This was somewhat bigger.
What was it?
Amoura looked at her.
It was their pet hyena.
What? You can't just say that so casually. They had a pet hyena?
Yeah. She didn't die from Red River, though. She died from Karn herself. When she arrived to destroy the house, she killed the first line of defense, which was the hyena.
Amoura smiled.
Her name is very important to me.
Raven got to her knees, putting her arms around Amoura.
Why?
Amoura nodded, smiling.
Her name was Amoura.
Raven smiled.
That's pretty cool. You were named after a hyena.
Yeah, I was named after a hyena. Pretty cool, right?
Raven looked at the skeleton again.
Why? Why did they have a hyena? Did they use it for missions or something?
Amoura shook her head.
No, it was just a pet. It was Estella's pet, not my parents'.
Raven nodded.
Oh, right. How did she ever get a pet hyena? Where did she get it from? I'm guessing it's not a rescue.
Amoura laughed a bit, then considered the thought for a second.
I don't know, to be honest. She was always a bit vague on that. My best guess is when she was in the crime world, she could have had a guard dog or a hyena.
Raven smiled.
And she chose the hyena.
Amoura smiled, a tear going down her face.
Wouldn't you?
Raven stood up and took off her hat, putting it to her chest in a sign of respect, then noticed Amoura's silent crying. Raven bent back down.
Listen, Amoura, if this is too much for you, we don't have to stay here.
No, it's fine. I want to see everything again for one last time.
She started crying, trying to hold it back.
I just didn't realize how much they had lost to keep so little.
They lost a lot, but it wasn't to keep so little.
Amoura looked at her.
All that's left of their lives is me. Not the life they wanted. Not this house, not their friends. All they have left is me. And they can't even see me.
But they can see you. They're always watching down on you. And to be honest, them looking down at you and seeing you surviving, laughing with us, that would have made their day. They would have loved it. I promise you, if your parents could see you now, they'd be proud.
They both got to their feet, turning to the big house, planning to go inside. End of Episode 1, Part 4.